Last Wednesday, I gave this talk for the purpose of joining together some of the topics we've been going over in Basecamp. But as the First Noble Truth would predict, something went wrong. I ended up with a well-framed, well-lit video and no audio. I decided to just do it again. That way, maybe I could be a little more concise. You'll probably appreciate that. And I could emphasize points that I think are going to help us in our practice. We're trying to join the knowledge and the method. The knowledge and the method come together on the path. It takes a little bit longer than we probably think it does to put together the knowledge and the method. People seem to think that meditation just happens automatically. Something might happen automatically, but it's probably not the same thing as the meditation that the Dharma tradition has preserved and encouraged for all of these centuries and all of these millions of practitioners. I want to make sure that this talk gets out to you before our next meeting. We're getting ready to take a turn in Basecamp, and it's going to involve our personal development through joining method and knowledge. Method and knowledge. So here I am at MTC with my notes from Basecamp, and I hope that this is helpful. It's pretty common for us to feel that, one, there's something that we should be doing, but we're not doing it. It's kind of a pervasive, subtle, undefinable anxiety that something important isn't getting done. And two, that we're forgetting something important. So number one, we're not doing something that we should. And number two, we're forgetting something important. Now maybe you have felt that anxiety. I certainly have felt that anxiety. That anxiety is an intuitive bullseye. There is something we're forgetting to do, and there is something we're forgetting. When we discover the Dharma teachings, though, we've just pulled in to the realm where both of those things will be answered. Not automatically, but we will find what it is that we've been not doing that we should really do, and we will be able to connect with what we have forgotten. Both take effort, both take determination, both take motivation, but both are right there for us once we have turned our life toward the path of meditation. So let's take these one at a time. What are we forgetting to do? What is it that we could be doing that we aren't doing that would make us feel whole rather than anxious? We are forgetting to develop samadhi. Samadhi isn't just for Buddhists. Samadhi is for everyone. Samadhi is health. Lack of samadhi is sickness. We are forgetting to develop the stability of our attention. We are forgetting to take care of ourselves. Maybe you have felt at times that you're not taking care of yourself physically. You're letting day after day pass without doing anything to take care of your health. Maybe you have children, a family, people who depend on you, and you know that taking care of your health would be about the best thing you could do to secure their well-being in your shared future. But you're not doing it, and you don't feel good about it. Or maybe you're not taking care of yourself financially. You're shopping and not saving. There may be a day of reckoning. That's the situation. That's the situation for most of us. We don't have the means for taking care of our state of mind because it doesn't really exist in our world. It's not exactly our fault. It's not about fault. It's about the situation. And the situation doesn't get better on its own. The human mind is just like a muscle, only it's a muscle that needs to be used in a disciplined way. Otherwise, it falls into a vague and vulnerable state. Why should we develop samadhi? Because samadhi is the most responsible state of mind that we can cultivate. Not having samadhi actually puts ourselves and others at risk. We are less able to recognize when we are being manipulated by our own emotions into behaving in a way that manipulates others in an attempt to fulfill unrecognized needs and unnoticed motivations. Even though we are good people, we have lived our lives being manipulated and manipulating others, because that's the activity of klesha. Klesha, or afflicted emotion, is never neutral. It always brings with it an agenda to get its way. Its way is never clear even to it, but it does involve manipulation of our world and our environment. We put ourselves at risk by letting our mind wander toward other people's messaging. We don't have our critical intelligence activated. We're pulled in the direction of something, and what do you think begins to happen? That's right, we're manipulated. Now, like I said before, we're not trying to find an enemy here. The enemy is within, but it doesn't exist as a being or an entity that we can punish. It's a habit. It's a habit that comes about through not understanding the way things are. And why don't we understand the way things are? We're forgetting something important. What is it that we're forgetting? We're forgetting our true nature. Forgetting our true nature leaves us no other option than to be confused about our true nature and to operate in our lives as if we don't know our true nature. Now, this would be understandable if it were impossible to know our true nature, but it isn't impossible. It is possible to know our true nature. Duh. That's why we're meditators. Please don't just be a meditator because you want to feel better, because feeling better never really works out, but knowing our true nature does. And that's what meditation is going to bring us to. But we have to understand what meditation really involves, and it doesn't involve a whole lot. It's not a super complicated thing. But it is a recipe, and there are components in this recipe. We just want to get those together so that every time we sit down to our practice, we've got the mixing bowl, all the ingredients, and the oven is hot. That way, it comes out properly each time. We get the benefit of an actual, mature meditation path, and the world is no longer afflicted by our irresponsible state of mind. Now, there's never a reason to feel bad about ourselves when there's such a positive path unfolding ahead of us. Let's not get caught in regret for all the time that we've missed the point. Of course we've missed the point. Dharma is a discovery for everyone. Everyone who walks the path of Dharma, who cleans up and grows up, who wakes up, they get there by showing up on their own in their life. If it happens on your very last day of life, it still has happened. So let's have a positive outlook and move forward with some optimism. Dharma takes some doing, but we are going to get really clear on just what that doing is so that we can feel the progress of our path as human beings developing through Dharma. Okay? Do you remember this? This is the path of the 12 links of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada. This is, by some accounts, the knowledge that the Buddha discovered upon his own awakening. Many people would say, if you understand this, you understand everything that he taught. Within this is the Four Noble Truths. Within this is the path of shamatha and the path of vipassana. So we're going to take a look at some, not all. In particular, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th links in this chain, known as feeling, craving, grasping, and becoming. What we're forgetting to do is to operate intelligently within this system that is unfolding each moment. When we develop our minds through samadhi, we already know that we will be developing the capacity to pay attention and to stay put, to stay awake, to stay focused. That's true, but there's a lot more to it than that. Samadhi develops our character. And one of the most important elements of our character is our ability to discern the truth and to stick to what arises in our mind as the best course. Being manipulated is never a good thing. And the mind of samadhi develops the character of resisting or standing up and countering manipulation. The same goes for our own tendencies to manipulate others. Even though we are not evil people, we have a tendency to interact based on the impetus of our kleshas, our afflicted emotions, our needs, our hidden agenda. Hidden from whom? Hidden from ourselves. We manipulate others when we don't recognize that klesha have taken over the controls and are driving the vehicle. Samadhi is the one and only certain place where we take the controls. Awareness develops arms, grabs the wheel, and keeps us on a slow and steady course. It also knows how to accelerate if need be. But there's no point in rushing, because rushing usually leads to confusion. So samadhi tends to slow the human being down, and that feels like relaxation. So this chart can be a little complicated at first. It's not necessary that we try to unpack this whole thing before we understand the important elements of it. It really can be chunked and understood bit by bit and become very useful. Cut. This chart breaks down the whole human experience from birth to death, but also from moment to moment. And it allows us to insert a way of living that results in happiness, health, awakening. And the place where it does that is between feeling and craving. Feeling is the dawn of every moment. And moments are 360, and moments are very tiny points in time, very brief. 360 of them exist in the snap of a finger. Feeling is the dawn of every moment before anything has happened. We feel invited into a situation, repelled by a situation, or indifferent to a situation. We may want more of something, less of something, or we just don't care. So feeling is divided into those three types. A positive feeling, this feels good, I want more. A negative feeling, this frightens me, I need to get away from this or push this away. And an indifferent feeling, I don't even notice this. Feeling very quickly leads to one response. Feeling leads to a response. That response is called craving. Craving can result in pushing something away or pulling something in or simply not recognizing the nature of experience. That would be indifference. We might pull something in with passion, push something away with aggression, or just not notice the reality of what something is. That would be ignorance. When craving arises, we begin to act to fulfill the type of craving that has developed in response to the type of feeling. So if something feels good, we develop the craving to have more. And then we begin to grasp after the thing. As soon as we have done that, we have set a new cycle of action into play. And the way that will play out is that someone will have to be there in the future to play it out. And that someone will be us. That's called bhavana, or becoming. So feeling leads to craving, which leads to grasping, which leads to becoming. Now, that can be quite philosophical, or it can be just quite gut level understanding. And we want to go for the gut level understanding first and let the philosophical understanding come in due time. When we feel uncomfortable, we crave a solution, and so we manipulate our environment. That sets in motion a tendency to manipulate the environment again. It gets to the point where we don't even realize that we are manipulating the environment. That is dukkha. That is also the cause of dukkha. So as we know, freedom from dukkha is to reverse craving and clinging by staying with feeling. When we stay with feeling uncomfortable, feeling comfortable, or feeling indifferent, we don't allow the arising of craving, the arising of grasping, and the arising of becoming. Feeling is where we stop. And the mind that does that is called samadhi. Samadhi is attained when attention is able to stabilize itself on an object and stay there as long as it wants. When we look at the 9 stages of shamatha, which is a system we use to measure that attainment, samadhi begins at the 4th stage and just deepens and deepens and deepens all the way to the 9th stage. But it really does begin at the 4th stage. And when we are able to get to the 4th stage, we will see for ourselves the power of samadhi. We will see for ourselves the way that samadhi shapes our character. And we will feel what it feels like to resist manipulation, both by our own emotions and the emotions of others. This overall character development comes about from 2 primary changes in motivation. The first is that we are motivated to refrain from pointless activity. Much of what we do, we blindly hope that it will solve a problem that we only vaguely recognize, and it just never does. Much of our activity is fruitless and pointless. It's futile. The futility of actions not embraced and guided by samadhi begins to become apparent to the mind of samadhi. And we begin to withdraw our interest or divest our attention from things which really are just a waste of time. We tend to have less hunger for constant entertainment, for example. We tend to have less need for other people's attention, and we're able instead to give our attention, and we're instead able to endure times with no entertainment. It's quite a shift. We also begin to feel a powerful drive to really wake up. Having attained samadhi, we get a sense of what lies ahead of us if we continue to deepen samadhi, and we intuitively know that something very potent, deep, and wonderful is ahead of us on this path. So the motivation to keep going arises well before we even conceptually understand what we're driving to. But that's pretty much okay if we have a tradition and a community of others who have been on the path before us, because they can help us. We don't always know where we're going in life, but sometimes we know that we're headed in the right direction. Sometimes we know we're headed in the wrong direction. Sometimes we're not sure. But when we attain samadhi, we know that we are on the right track. And we don't know exactly what it's going to lead to, but we can tell that it's going to lead to the thing that we've been longing for. Maybe that's why it's still described as a great mystery or a wonderful journey of discovery, even though intellectually we know that the path of samadhi and meditation and dharma leads to liberation from suffering. It leads to the state known as bodhi, awakening. But what is that really? We don't actually know. Not when we're still on the path. But we do know that we want it. Now that's kind of interesting because we know that we want it. Well before we know precisely what it is. That's okay. There's no way to know what it is before we attain it. There just is no way to know what it is before we attain it. This is one of those things where we have to let the heart lead the journey. And samadhi quiets the mind so that the heart can come forward and lead us down the path. That motivation to wake up is known as bodhicitta, the mind turned toward awakening. And that tendency to pull away from pointless activities is known as renunciation, arising from activities that were trying to pull us down. Renunciation and bodhicitta are the two elements of a healthy character. We don't need much beyond that. If we have renunciation, then we no longer engage in things that waste our time or harm the world. And when we have bodhicitta, we're always engaged in things that lead to awakening. We naturally give rise to compassion and friendliness. We have energy. We have drive. Those are a good combination, and they're simple. Dharmic people, the deeper they get, the simpler they are. But simple means deep, and deep is fulfilling all on its own. You will never be at a loss for something to say unless you're always at a loss for something to say. Then that's probably something about you. But the world makes room for people like that, especially when they have the depth of personal development. So to sum up, we walk around with a feeling that there's something we're forgetting because we have forgotten our true nature. And we walk around with the anxiety that there's something we should be doing because we should be developing the stability and clarity of our mind so that we can see our true nature. When we turn our lives in the direction of developing stability and wisdom, we develop the character of a Dharma practitioner. This is characterized by an unwillingness to engage in pointless activities and a great drive to attain the exalted wisdom that is within our heart. We do this by learning how not to be manipulated by our own emotions and the emotions of others. This doesn't mean to be indifferent or cruel or blunt or unresponsive. It doesn't mean any of those things. It means to be awake and to have boundaries and to have the wakefulness to know when something is approaching our boundaries so that we can have the skillfulness to protect our path without causing harm to others or to ourselves. The Dharma practitioner learns more and more how to stick to their path without causing complications for other people. At the beginning of our path, we cause complications for other people. Suddenly we're into meditation and going to Dharma talks and reading new types of books. We might change our diet. We might change a lot of things about our lives, and other people aren't prepared for that. They didn't see it coming. They didn't expect it. It complicates things. But as we move forward in our path, we know how to move forward quickly, but cleanly, gently, and almost invisibly. There's no need to clutter the world because we're on the Dharma path. There's no need to complicate other people's lives because we're meditators. We don't need to complicate other people's lives. We can simplify our life and go deep, and that will radiate out a type of health that the world really, really responds to. So going forward, MTC will support the development of samadhi. It's the least we can do, and it's the first thing to do. So we have a center here with all these cushions. We've got a gong to hit. Let's develop samadhi, and let's let our character become the character of Dharma practitioners. We'll all be individuals. We'll all express our unique gifts, but we will be Dharma practitioners. The world needs Dharma practitioners. The world needs people who know what they stand for and who aren't easily manipulated. The world needs people who know who they are and are not easily manipulated away from knowing that. So I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Practice well.